guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Sarah Wisted. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys how I edit my Instagram photos. I've gotten quite a few questions over, I guess, the last few months about how I edit my Instagram photos. If you follow me on Instagram, you know I like more of like a creamy, neutral, I don't know, like not high contrast. So it's pretty much the opposite of high contrast. I've been really liking the less switch up. I do like my darks. My black's pretty dark though, so you'll notice that in my photos also. So let me kind of walk you through how I edit a photo, and I'll just explain some other, I guess, things that I do to get this photo to be the way that it is. So let me pull up my phone. I will do a screen recording as I am recording this. I want to show you like a few different photo types just to show you a little bit of different tweaks that you can do, because truly every photo is different. And so if I just show you one on how I do one and you try and do the exact same for your photo, which might be taken different lighting and taken a different like location, it may not look the same. So I'm going to try to explain to you like how you can kind of edit the same and get the outcome to look the same, but with different, I guess, photo situations. Okay, so let me jump right in. First things first, you go into the Lightroom app. I pretty much use Lightroom for every single photo. I rarely go to any other app. Occasionally I'll go to Facetune if I'm trying to remove like a piece of lint off of a black shirt, for example. I don't know, I can try and show you an example of that. But basically I'm using Lightroom for pretty much everything that I do. So in Lightroom, I just go to my photos, and I usually go to my favorites because it's easier to organize. Those of you who do a lot of content know that you take a ton of photos, so it's easy to take a bunch of photos, like the ones that you like, put them all in your favorites folder, and then go from there. So the first one that we'll do, I'll just do this easy picture. So it already looks okay because the lighting is really bright in this room, in my dining room. I have a lot of neutrals in the background, so if you take a photo in front of a neutral background, it's much easier to edit. So you'll notice that most of the backgrounds that I choose are very bright and not a lot going on, so not very busy. But again, that's just like my preference. If you prefer to have something busy in the background, that's of course up to you. But to get kind of the aesthetic that I'm going for, I do kind of opt for a minimal background, if that makes sense. So the first thing that I do is I go into light. So I'll hit the light at the bottom, and I usually bring the contrast down. So I used to bring contrast up, and I liked high contrast photos. That was like the thing to do like a few months, I mean it's probably more like over a year ago. But now I really like the lower contrast photos, so I'll bring the contrast down a bit. And I do kind of bring it down like kind of a lot. I would say I go pretty much that far for pretty much all of my photos. But just looking at that, let me show you the difference. Like this already looks better to me because it's just a little bit more, I don't even know what the right word is. Maybe like, I don't know if dreamy is the right word, but just not so like stark, if that makes sense. So I personally like this a little bit better. So I'll start there. The next thing I'll do is I'll bring my highlights down a tad. I don't really do a bunch with the highlights. I sometimes bring the shadows up just a bit, just a little bit. And then the whites I kind of leave alone for the most part. And then the blacks here at the bottom, this is where I make sure that my blacks are black. Because when you do take the contrast out, you're kind of like making the blacks a little bit creamier as well. But like I said, I like a sharp black, so I keep everything else creamy except for the blacks. I like to be a little bit more black, so that's what I do there. So this is pretty much where I am for most of my photos if the lighting is great. For exposure, I will sometimes make it a little bit darker because that does make the photo, in my opinion, look a little bit more sharp, if that makes sense. I rarely increase exposure unless a photo like really needs it. I rarely increase exposure. So I'm gonna bring this down maybe like that. So then let's just look at it from this point right now. You see how it's just like a little bit different. It's nothing crazy, but it just, in my opinion, looks better. The next, probably more important, I guess, trick that I use to edit my photos is in the color tab. If you go to the mix, like the color wheel, and you go to the yellow. Now, bringing down the yellows really makes your photo look less, it looks more clean to me. So like, let me just show you what I'm talking about. So if you bring down the yellow just a bit, I'm gonna bring it down a little bit more. And you look at the before and after. Do you see how it just looks less orangey, almost like the tint is gone? I know if you have blonde hair, if you're bringing the yellow down, it kind of makes your hair less blonde and more on the white side. I don't have blonde hair, so I know that that's something that I'm able to do without worrying about, but that is something that I have found for some of my friends who are blonde who try to take yellows out. It sometimes takes it out of your hair as well, so I guess you'd have to be a little bit careful about that if you're blonde. So after I get the yellows kind of where I want them, I do bring down the greens a bit. This photo doesn't really have any green in it, but except for like maybe in that window area, there's a little bit of greenery over there. So like the tint of green is gone now. These blues I take down just a bit too. And I pretty much don't touch any of the other colors. Occasionally I'll touch the orange. You can make yourself look a little bit more tan, or you can take out some of the oranges in a photo. For me, I'm trying to avoid a lot of yellows and a lot of oranges in my photos, so that's kind of where I go to remove them. But I will say if you take out the reds and the oranges, it kind of starts to play with like your skin tone and it just doesn't look natural. So I don't usually touch those unless it's like absolutely needed. So this is kind of where I'm at. I've already done what I needed to do in the light. I've moved over to the color. I've removed the yellows, which is the most important. I turned down the greens and the blues, and then occasionally I'll turn down some of the other colors, but I don't really touch anything else in the colors. And then I go into detail and I will use the sharpening tool and sharpen it just a bit. So I don't know if you can tell a difference, but it looks like it's sharpened this photo just a bit. And this is the before. And this is the after. Okay, then if you move over to the crop tool, I always crop it before I post it to Instagram. So either the 4x5 or the 10x16, whether it's going on my Instagram stories or my feed. So let's say it's going to the feed. I usually make sure, I guess this is part of the photo. It's not necessarily editing the photo, but I do make sure that I am on the bottom 2/3 of the photo. So if you'll notice that there, when you see the grid, there's more space at the top of this photo, and then I'm on the bottom 2/3 of the photo. I feel like this just makes the photo just look like it has more space, more room to breathe, and less in your face. So anytime I have people taking pictures of me that don't normally take pictures of me, I always tell them to leave space at the top. And most of the time they leave too much space, but I would rather have too much space at the top than not enough. So I do post most of my photos like with this composition, which may look a little bit far for you, but it actually looks really good in my opinion. But you can also bring it in a little bit, something like that. But also another like tip or trick is if you put your feet, if you're like have a full body photo, if you put your feet towards the bottom of the frame, it actually makes you look a little bit taller. So you probably wouldn't guess this unless you know me in person, but I am like 5'1.5" and considered petite, but a lot of people are shocked when they meet me in person at how like small I am because they think that I'm tall because of my photos. So, and I'm not tall, but that's just a little trick is I just put my feet towards the bottom of the photo. So let's accept that. Let's end with this one. And this one's done, so then you just export it. Okay, let's find another photo. Let's do a home one. So here's a home photo. So say you're taking a picture in your house. I'll say number one, most important thing about photography, no matter what, is lighting. So if you have poor lighting in your house, it's going to be extremely difficult to get a quality photo post-editing, if that makes sense. So you have to kind of set your photo up with really good lighting before you even go into the editing process. I am lucky in that I have like pretty great lighting in my house. That's actually one of the main reasons why we bought this house. I was already into content creation and I just was looking for a house that had really good lighting. But just stand closer to a window. Our dining room, this is our dining room. This gets the best natural light out of any room in our house. That my office does as well, where I'm in right now, but it's kind of gloomy out today. But you can't really tell that, I guess. It's a little dark in here. But the other thing I want to mention is when you're taking your photos, I have found that turning off the overhead lights is also really great at not making your photos look orangey or just low quality. So I'm shooting this video, all the lights up in my office are turned off. I just am sitting next to a window to get some natural light in here. You'll notice that your photos just turn out much better. So in my opinion, when you're taking the photo initially, lighting is the most important, and to turn off any like artificial light around you, because it just like looks, your photos look more glowy, if that makes sense. It just looks better. So this photo, I'm gonna edit and show you a little bit differently. So let's go to light. We take the contrast down like I do. This looks dark enough, so I'm going to keep the exposure where it is. Highlights down just a tad. Shadows we can bring up a tiny, tiny bit. And the blacks will make black. So again, before, after, just doing that. And then we go into color, go to our yellow, bring the yellow down just, this actually you don't really need to bring the yellow down too much, because then I'm not gonna bring the yellow down at all actually, because I think it looks fine like that. But if you did need to bring the yellow down, this is when you would do it. Green, you can see a little bit of my plant over here in the right, so I am gonna bring the green down just a bit. Ooh, wrong one. Okay, blues down. There, go into detail, sharpen. And this is our end result. We'll save that. Okay, let's do one more. I'm gonna try and find one that's requires a little bit more editing. Oh, here we can do this one. So this one's a little bit orangey, like on the orangey side. So what you can do here, I go through the usual, take the contrast down, take the highlights down, shadows up a bit, blacks. We'll play with exposure later. I usually, if I am gonna make a photo lighter or darker, I do usually do it at the end. So I have everything like color-wise the way I want it to look, and then I can change the exposure after. So go to the yellow, hold on, let me explain this part first. So if you take a photo, and like I mentioned earlier, if you have overhead lights on when you're taking your photo, it can make your photo look a little bit orange. And you can see in this, I do have my overhead lights on. This was just a quick snap that I was taking. I think the lighting was weird that day anyway, but this is, and opposed to the first photo that we just edited, you'll see that this one's much more orange and it just isn't as natural. So what I'm gonna do in here is I'm gonna go into, this temperature scale in the color tab. You can actually move it into the blue section a little bit to kind of balance out the tones in the photo. So I'm gonna move it to a little bit in the blue, just to kind of get it a little bit there. So that looks a little bit better to me already. But I am still gonna go into the mix and to my yellow and take a little bit of the yellows out. So I think that looks good. Green's down, blue's down. And then in the detail, I sharpen. Okay, and then we save that one. I'm trying to think what else I want to show you guys. Oh, I guess what I can show you guys is how I do my black and white photos. So let's just go to one we've already edited. So say we've already edited this one. So this is the house one. So if I wanted to turn this black and white, I just have all my edits the same. Then I go down to the color tab under saturation, and I take it all the way down. So now it's all the colors out. And then I'll go into the light tab, And I do like my black and whites to be darker. I don't know why, I just prefer it that way. So then that's when I go back into my light tab and I make it dark. Like that. And so like that looks good to me. So that's how I do my black and white photos. You can even go in here and make the blacks even blacker and it looks really cool too. So you just kind of play around with that, but that's how I do my black and whites. It's just take all the color out and then make it darker and turn the exposure down as well. So yeah, that's how I do black and white. Oh, so there's one other thing that I get asked about a lot, and it's how to get my like super dark and moody Instagram videos that I post on my stories. And it's super easy. So all you have to do, let me hit screen record again because I just ended the other. All you have to do is go in your camera and I'll take a video of, hey guys. Let me explain to you, I guess, first how you can do it, and you may have done it this way, but I like to put the exposure down before I take a photo. So for example, like you can do it this way where you can tap part of the photo and you see this little light, this little sun comes here, and you can like change the exposure before you take the photo. So like obviously that looks a little bit more moody than just like a regular exposure does, and you can go even darker, like you can get it kind of however you want it. But instead of doing that, like the problem in my opinion with this way of doing it is that this little square creates a focus point. So it's fine if you're just taking a static photo, but if you want to take a video and you do that, and you hit the one, you can hold it down and actually lock it into that spot and go down. And if you were to take a video like this and kind of like move around, what I have found when I try and take videos that way is the focus stays within the square, which is the whole point of this whole lock like feature. And so if you're trying to take a video and move around and show different parts within the screen, everything outside the square can be out of focus. So that's not what we want. So instead of doing that, I need to switch back to this. There's this like triangle at the top of the screen. So hit the triangle, and then you'll see like the plus minus. This is the exposure setting. And then you can actually just set the exposure that you want. So if you want it to be really moody, super, super dark, there you go. If you want it to be up a little bit, there you go. So I will say, you can even go higher, but like nobody does overexpose like this anymore, so I wouldn't recommend it. But if you like it, you do it. You do you. But I will say, when I'm taking my photos, like even just like snapping some before I'm gonna edit them, I almost always bring the exposure down just a bit to like 3, or even if it's really bright outside, I'll take it down to 7, but I would say I usually keep it at 3. And the reason I do this is because I feel like the photo looks more sharp and more professional than it to be overexposed. There's nothing worse than an overexposed photo. I feel like the underexposed photo, in my opinion, just looks better. So when I'm taking photos, I either keep it here, like at the 0.0 or 0.3. And then again, sometimes even go darker than that. So that's kind of my tip to you. I always take it just a little bit underexposed. It just looks higher quality to me. But yeah, you can do this also in video. So you can go to video, and what you have to do is you kind of have to like hit your finger up a little bit, and it pops up these controls down here, and then here's the exposure right there, and same thing, you just bring it darker. And so that's how I do it. And then you can just like record however you want to do it. You can even get darker. So that's it. I thought of one more thing that I wanted to show you guys, and it was how to remove like lint off of clothes. I did notice that my baby is waking up, so I'll be quick with this one too. So I just opened up a photo that has lint on the leggings. So if you see, I'm in just like the regular Facetune, app. I think there's like Facetune and Facetune 2, I think is what they have. But I just use the regular Facetune app. And if you scroll in or like expand the photo, you'll see there's lots of lint on this legging. And I will say, like, this is kind of a time-consuming process, maybe unnecessary, but I swear it just makes the photos just feel nicer. And I am very type A and like to know how to do these things. So what I do is I first go into, there's this patch tool at the bottom down here. So I'm gonna zoom in a little bit more, hit patch. and I'm gonna hit that first piece of lint right there. I'm gonna make this smaller. And then I gotta, so you see how like if you move it, the lines kind of move too? You wanna make sure like the lines match up, because that's, I mean, this is such a small detail, you probably wouldn't know better, but that's would show like the different, like you would be able to notice it if it was like a big part of your photo, you'd be able to see like you were patching it up. So you try and like keep the lines like together also. So this looks good, so I'm gonna hit okay there, and I'm gonna patch a few more and I'll show you the difference. Now, you can literally spend so much time doing this, which believe me I have, because I sometimes am just like psychotic about it. But just to show you guys a before and after, so look at the difference of this, it's kind of wild. Isn't that crazy? Like that looks so much better already, and I could even spend more time doing some of these ones down here, which I'll spare you. But a few of the other ways that I use Facetune is I also use this details tab, or the details feature right here as well, to make details stand out a little bit more. I like to use this on jewelry. I like to use details on my eyes. That's one thing that I do use detail on, is if you like you swipe it over like your eyelashes, it makes your eyelashes look darker and just a little bit more sharp, in your eyebrows as well. So I'll do eyes, I'll do eyebrows, earrings, like jewelry, that kind of thing, and then just anything that I really want to pop. So I, just quickly go over that. I don't use it for everything because sometimes it starts to look a little fake. So you just want to be careful on like over editing your photos. But for here, for example, you can use it on the leggings here and just do a few strokes, and you'll see like the detail in the legging comes out a bit more. That, or even like the Prada. It's like very subtle because it really works well with jewelry, but it's pretty subtle on everything else. So I'm just gonna go ahead and accept that. And then I also like to use the smooth. For example, you can smooth your skin too. So I just do a few like strokes of the smooth. And again, I usually do not go into this app unless it's needed. But like even like that looks better too. Yeah, I mean, the main part that I wanted to show you is how awesome it looks to be able to remove lint like that. Like how awesome is that? Like if you take all these photos and there's lint and it doesn't look good, you can just remove it. So yeah. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's helpful for you guys, and I really can't off the top of my head. So I'm gonna go ahead and just leave it at that. Hopefully that was helpful for you guys. If it was, please go ahead and give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. I do lots of content on modern, minimal, like home decor and fashion. I do plan to get more into home decor this year because it has been such a fun thing to start getting into. As much as I love fashion, I just feel like the home decor is just really kind of the direction that I'm going in lately. So I would absolutely love if you consider subscribing to my channel and stay tuned for those videos. And yeah, I just would love to hear any comments from you guys down below on what your favorite way to edit is, if this video is helpful, what your favorite tip was that I shared. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and end this video here, and I will talk to you guys on my next video.